What is going on out there, peeps? We're going to talk about child labor laws. Not anything boring. It should be entertaining and informative. When you shoot around on social media, it never fails to amaze me just how uneducated a lot of people are about different subjects. The ones that entertain me the most are those people who say, I've done the deep dive, I've done the research, or they say, go do the research and you'll see I'm right. And you can absolutely positively tell they've done no research whatsoever.
Trump is about to reinstate child labor laws. I don't think you can hear me. Trump and the Republicans are about to reinstate child labor laws. Okay, Iowa has already reinstated it.
Trump and the Republicans are not going to reinstate child labor laws. The child labor laws have been around since 1938. Trump just can't magically pull a wand out of his ass and change the child labor laws.
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie.
So you can see right here, the U.S. children are allowed to pick fruits and vegetables for work under specific conditions regulated by the Fair Labor Standards Act and state laws. Children as young as 12 years old can work in agriculture. 12 years old, including picking fruits and vegetables on farms exempt from certain FLSA provisions. Small farms are those not covered by minimum wage requirements. For farms subject to FLSA, the minimum age is 14 for non-hazardous agricultural work outside of school hours. So no, there ain't no damn kids going to work at 7 years old. Trump didn't change the law forcing kids to go to work at 7 years old. So examinations of the claim about kids as young as 7. There is no evidence to suggest that Trump's administration changed labor laws to allow kids as young as 7 to work. The FLSA sets the minimum age for employment at 14 years for non-manufacturing, non-hazardous jobs, and 16 years for most other jobs, with 18 being the minimum age for hazardous occupation. While there are proposals and discussions about changing child labor laws, none of them included lowering the minimum working age to 7 years old. Trump, like I said, can't just pull a wand out of his ass and change laws. If any laws are going to be changed, it's got to be done through the Congress. You have the drafting of the bill, the introducing of a bill. The introduced bill goes to committee, subcommittee reviews, committee amendments, and vote. The House or Senate votes on the bill, referral of the bill to the next chamber. The bill goes to the president to sign. So it isn't that Trump's just going to make a law and change it. It doesn't work that way. Now, the thing that gets me, she keeps saying Trump changed the dependence age. I was like, the dependence age? What the hell is she talking about? No, a dependent age generally refers to the age limits that define who can be claimed as a dependent, particularly for tax purposes and health insurance. So Trump didn't change any dependence law. What she's talking about makes no sense whatsoever.
It's a reason why Trump went from the dependents being 18 down to 7. If you think I'm lying, you better go read those laws.
It's a reason, she says.
It's a reason why Trump went from the dependents being 18 down to 7. If you think I'm lying, you better go read those laws because they are coming back. All right?
No, the bigger thing is she needs to go read those laws because nothing is coming back. It's like me watching this lady. She was screaming and crying up and down that Trump is reversing this Civil Rights Act of 1965. What the hell is she talking about? There's nowhere around it. Has anybody said that besides her?
Damn immigrants who was picking them fruits and vegetables for a little bit of nothing. They feel like why would we have them pick them? Because they don't want them in our country when we got all these goddamn kids that can pick it. Because back in 1908, the kids worked. Come on now. The kids worked at like 9. So ain't that kind of funny how he took it from 18 to 7? Ain't that funny? Because they're self-sufficient, right?
Right.
Did she just say because they're self-deficient? And again, I must stress, Trump hasn't done nothing like that. And just in case you go, well, he can do it by executive order already way ahead of you. Look at President Trump could not pass an executive order that lowers the minimum age that children can work if it contradicts the Fair Labor Standards Act. The FLSA is a federal law established by Congress, and any changes to it would require a congressional action. While a president can issue executive orders, they cannot supersede existing federal law. Any attempt to do so would likely be challenged in court and overturned. Now back to this deficient thing. Let's hear it again.
Ain't that funny? Because they're self-sufficient, right?
Because they're self-deficient. All right, this kind of rolls into something she's about to bring up, which is school choice. In her case, I think she really would have benefited from school choice because wherever she got her public education from ain't working for her.
That he's changing the education department, right? So what he's doing with that is, right, hold on, wait, listen. He's making vouchers. Vouchers are going to work for private schools, right? Eventually, public schools are not going to be able to get that funding, so public schools are going to close. So when the public schools close, those 7-year-olds, because come on now, they start kindergarten around, what, 7?
Yeah, because most kids start school around 7. I would believe it if it's pertaining to her. But anyways, once again, Trump can't do anything by himself. He would need members of Congress to act. So no, Trump didn't issue any vouchers for private schools. What Trump is campaigning for is school choice, which benefits lower income and black communities more than any other.
They're going to be able to work because they ain't doing nothing else. They ain't going to school. You might as well put them back to work, right? Teach them that. If we can teach them how to read and write, we can teach them how to work. I think y'all, yeah. In Iraq, they changed the marriage law down to 9 years old. That he's changing the education department, right? So what he's doing with that is, right, hold on, wait, listen. He's making vouchers. Vouchers are going to work for private schools.
Not one single student could do math at grade level in 53 different Illinois schools. And for reading, not one single student could read at grade level in 30 different schools. Those results are dismal. Illinois' educational system is failing our kids, and it's why we finally need school choice in Illinois.
School choice has come to Texas.
Texas recently became the 16th state to help parents choose which school their kids attend. South Carolina followed a few days later. This is a good thing. Competition improves services. The post office couldn't get it there overnight. Then FedEx appeared, and suddenly the post office improved its speed. It's not as good as the private companies, but still, they got better. Consumer choice is a big reason capitalist countries outperform socialist ones. But in most of America, parents have little or no choice when it comes to which school their kids attend. Bureaucrats decide based on where you live. Live in a poor neighborhood with a lousy school? Too bad, you're stuck. And in trouble if you try to sneak your child into a good school.
One Ohio mom is currently sitting in jail, accused of illegally trying to get her daughters into a better school district.
This naive reporter parrots the government's spin.
Prosecutors say a private investigator even caught her red-handed on video living in the wrong district.
The wrong district?
She was cheating, getting a quality education for her daughters without paying the right taxes.
At least the anchor understands.
People do it because they're just trying to get their kid a better education.
Right. But teachers' unions and government school bureaucrats don't want parents to have choices. They don't want the competition.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Years ago, New York City's teachers' union came to my ABC office to shout shame on you at me.
We are here to demand an apology from 2020's John Stossel.
I had done a primetime special called
Stupid in America, How We Cheat Our Kids.
My report showed how some other countries let kids choose their school.
Giving kids a choice forces schools to try harder.
You have to be innovative. So if we don't succeed, we just run out of business.
But American teachers said,
competition is not for children. It's not for human beings. It's not for public education.
I confronted union boss Randy Weingarten about how hard it is to fire even a very bad teacher. She smugly replied,
we'll police our own profession.
Though the union does allow a school to fire a bad teacher, she says you just have to follow the steps. But look at these. It's unbelievably complicated and long. And this is just the first page. I have to stand up to show the whole thing. This is what a principal would have to go through to fire a bad teacher. No wonder some kids are taught by horrible teachers.
Teach your teeth!
The union protesters made a proposal to me.
So just teach
teach for a week.
She said if I tried teaching, I'd report how hard the job is. The crowd liked that.
Teach, John, teach!
But when I said, okay, I'll teach, she changed her mind and said, no, you can't.
They don't want people to be able to take their kids somewhere else because they know that they're failing your children.
Education researcher Corey DeAngelo says the best way to help kids is to give parents a choice.
Money doesn't belong to the government schools. Education funding is supposed to be meant for educating children, not for propping up and protecting a particular institution. We should fund the student, not the system.
Then parents can take education funding to a charter school or even a private school.
Senate Bill 2 will give families $10,000 per student.
If you like your kid's public school, you can leave them there. That way, good schools get the money. And choice provides other advantages, like fewer angry debates over what schools teach. Without choice, the school boards can just ignore you if you complain about something.
When you go and protest at the school board meetings and you don't have school choice, they try to bully and silence you into submission.
A mother of 3 was carried out of a Decatur school board meeting.
You have no agency. You have no power in that relationship.
These parents are protesting for the right to opt their kids out of certain school lessons on gender and sexuality.
These conflicts rarely happen when there's choice, because parents can just choose another school. But the biggest benefit is that students with greater choice get a better education. Florida's math and reading scores were once among the bottom in the nation, but then they expanded choice.
Most recently, they were ranked #1 on the issue of education, and it's not a money issue. They spend about 27% less than the national average, and they're knocking it out of the park.
The Sunshine State, #1 for higher education.
Finally, when there's choice, government schools get better too. Just because a parent can leave, that makes the school better?
Only then will the school system have true incentives to cater to the needs of families and their children, as opposed to the other way around.
It's insane to take money away from those schools to give it to private schools.
That's another misleading argument. Private schools take money from public schools. But it's not true. Most school vouchers are worth less than what the government schools spend. So when a student leaves, the government school is left with more money per student.
Traditional public schools financially benefit because they get to keep thousands of dollars for students they're no longer educating.
But media leftists still say schools don't have enough money.
They're underfunded. If we want our public schools to get better, you can't take money out of the system.
That's just ignorant. No one's taken money out of the system. Funding keeps rising.
The government schools in the United States now spend around $20,000 per student per year. That's about 60% higher than average private school tuition.
$20,000 per child. Where does that money go? A class of 20, that would be $400,000. How can they not do great work with that? You should be able to hire 6 great teachers for one classroom.
It goes to administrative bloat and staffing surges.
I see that looking through school district directories. Student enrollment's basically flat, but the number of administrators increased by 95%.
Places that have stronger teachers unions had larger administrative bloat problems over time because they are insulated from competition, and the best solution to this problem is to make the funding portable, follow the child, and then maybe these administrators, they'll have an incentive to up their game, shape up, or go out of business.
If there's choice, the parents will soon see, hey, this school teaches better. I want my kid to go to that school. And that school's good ideas will spread.
That's exactly right. Competition is a rising tide that lifts all boats.
And before they make it a race issue, blacks benefit more from school choice.
The education that white kids receive is nothing to write home about. But the education that black kids are receiving is a national disgrace.
The public opinion polls that I've seen, majorities of blacks and Hispanics want school choice.
It's hugely popular among the very people who want it and need it most. Low income, inner city, black and Hispanic people. For decades, it has pulled off the charts.
73% of Baltimoreans say they have no confidence in their school system. There are 13 high schools in Baltimore where 0% of kids are proficient in math.
And in 6 other Baltimore schools, only 1% tested proficient in math. Now, some people say, well, gee, the problem is is finances. Well, it turns out that's just plain nonsense. That is, of the 100 largest school districts in the country, Baltimore ranks 4th in terms of spending on students. Part of the tragedy of this is that these kids are incompetent in math and incompetent in English, but they receive their high school graduation diplomas. Last June, for example, just one school in Baltimore where 90% of the students scored the lowest possible score one can get on the math exam, they held graduation exercises. And the families were proud of their sons and daughters, and some of them even won scholarships to colleges. Now, the social tragedy involved in fraudulent diplomas is that these black students, as well as their families, they think that their kid has a high school diploma just like the white kid has a high school diploma. And so if these kids can't get good jobs, they can't pass a civil service exam, they flunk out of college, well, the tendency is to attribute it to racism.
There was a school just 2 blocks up the street in which only 2 children in the entire 8th grade could do math on grade level. In that school that we were running, 96% of the children could read on grade level, and 84% could do math on grade level. The reason why 1,194 children applied to just one of my schools in one year without printing a single brochure, without going to a single church to talk about it, is because they got tired. And isn't that a revelatory experience when black people get tired? And what they're tired of is saying, I just want my son to go to a school where I know at the end of the day he's going to come home one day better prepared.
A few years ago, on a statewide, New York statewide math test, there was an elementary school, grade 4, I believe, in Harlem, whose students passed those tests at a higher rate than any 4th grade kids anywhere in the state of New York. I mean, we're talking Scarsdale, Briarcliff, places like that. The Success Academy schools as a whole, their students pass both the math and the English statewide tests at a higher rate than any school district in the entire state of New York. And these are not kids who are skimming the cream. They're kids chosen by lottery. They don't even test them for ability. They don't even look at their academic record. They take them into the schools, and they have hard work, and they make it clear at the outset, and they don't tolerate a lot of nonsensical behavior. And these kids are doing incredibly. And yet, the mayor of New York is doing his darndest to put a stop to the expansion of schools in general, but his special ire is aimed at the Success Academy schools. And this is happening all over the country.
Because they make the teachers' unions look bad that run the public schools? What's the political motivation? Why would Mayor de Blasio have an out for the charter schools, such as Success Academy?
Well, the teachers' union are the major reason. We're talking about the money they contribute, the number of votes they contribute.
Charter school kids in the same building with traditional public school kids pass the math test nearly 7 times as often. That's an average. At the extremes, it's almost unbelievable. I mean, one classic example is a school where 7% of the kids in the traditional public school in that building pass the math test. In the charter school, 100% pass the math test.
This whole debate we have about school choice is not really about whether school choice works. It's about whether public education should be primarily a jobs program for adults.
There's all kind of chicanery to prevent the charter schools from expanding. That's why you have tens of thousands on the waiting list. Right. It's not that the charter schools aren't willing to expand, but every conceivable obstacle is put in their way.
Well, they understand that if 50,000 kids on waiting lists to get into charter schools are able to do so, and the per pupil allotment of money is $20,000, more than $20,000 per student, that means that the traditional public schools will lose more than $1 billion a year. And the public schools are in no mood to lose that kind of money. And the teachers' unions are by no means in a mood to lose that many teachers' jobs and the union dues that those teachers pay.
One of the things they're doing is imposing the same kinds of restrictions on the charter schools that made the public schools so bad. For example, restrictions on being able to get rid of kids who are running amok and ruining the education of everybody else. And the charter schools don't tolerate that. The things that are tolerated in the public schools are unbelievable.
In those inner city schools, they're crime-ridden. Students are afraid to go to school because of the, quote, restorative justice rooted in Marxism, and it is making it almost impossible for students to be suspended. And in cities that are run by Democrats, they have not gotten rid of that. And so there's lawlessness within the schoolhouse. The teachers are afraid to teach. There's chaos in school, just like it is on the streets. And I think that that's very problematic, and we need school choice. We need to hold public schools accountable. And whenever Democratic cities want money, they say we have to pay our teachers more. They use the teachers, but a lot of that money never reaches the teachers. It's used for administrative purposes.
The interests of the teachers' unions can be opposite to those of the teachers. For example, if there's a large increase of money into the school system, and they're always saying it's underfunded, no matter how many billions of dollars go down a bottomless pit. When the money is out there and available, you could use that money to raise teachers' salaries. That would be good for the teachers. It would be bad for the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions get more dues if instead of raising the teachers' salaries, you create more jobs, more teachers' aides, more counselors, more nurses, more this, more that, more bureaucrats in the system, because all those people will be paying union dues.
Now we have another court decision going up regarding schools, whether money should be able to follow children to schools parents want. And that answer should be yes. But because of unions, the answer is no. Because of the Blaine Amendment, the answer is no. So now a case is going to the court, which will revolutionize education in our poor communities if the court decides that it's not unconstitutional for money to follow children to schools parents want, including if the parents want a religious school.
Your Jesse Jacksons, your Al Sharptons, your NAACPs, who tend to oppose school choice because they are siding with the unions, right, who do not like it, not because it doesn't work, but because many of these charter schools and many of these schools where the vouchers would be used aren't organized. And their primary concern are the adults in the system, not the kids.
There is a whole way of life that has come about in the traditional public schools. There's no way that they can compete with the charter schools without changing that profoundly. For example, the ironclad job protection that the teachers have, so that teachers who have done all kinds of terrible things remain on the payroll because it is just too expensive to get rid of them. My gosh, they had one class of teachers who did no teaching at all and would just report to some vacant room and sit there during the day, and they would collect full pay and collect seniority and their various benefits and so forth, because the cost of firing them is prohibitive. It's prohibitive in financial terms and in time. If you want, in money terms, a study has shown that to fire a teacher for incompetence, it takes an average of 830 days, which is more than 2 years, and costs an average of $313,000. And that by no means guarantees that you'll be able to do it.
Hiring teachers after 2 years in the classroom, giving them a job for life, making them impossible to fire, there's no educational justification for that. Those are job protections.
Do you know that nationwide, only about 10% of American families send their kids to private schools? 6% of American black families do. However, in Chicago, of the teachers with school-age kids, 39% send them to private schools. Now that's the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, holding up a sign saying, open for business, but don't eat the food.
There is no more powerful declaration of our own humanity as black people, even for light-skinned ones with curly hair, than to stand on our own 2 feet and say we are not going to send our children to schools that we know will not educate them. You cannot call it a school if children don't learn.
There's only one solution to this problem. That is, we need more school choice. We need to break the education monopoly and give parents more choice. That is, there are a number of parents who want their kids to get a good education and they're willing to sacrifice, and the kids themselves, they want a good education. But however, if they're in a rotten school, they will not get a good education. So the solution for many black children, and as white children as well, is for us to have school choice.
Democrats around the country are lining up to stop charter schools from expanding, try to cut back on them. And many of them are the very schools that are most successful, or the ones they're zeroing in. Places like Success Academy or KIPP schools and so forth.
Obama becomes president of the United States and spends 8 years trying to shut down a school voucher program in his own backyard in Washington, D.C. that was started by his predecessor, George W. Bush. Why? Why? The first black president could enhance this program that he knows, poll after poll shows, is popular in the black community. The reason is that Barack Obama is no longer simply another black person. He's now a black president. He has special interests that are nipping at his heels. He wants to be reelected. He has to indulge these special interests, one of whom are teachers' unions, who oppose school choice because many of these schools aren't unionized and don't use union labor. So Obama has a choice. Am I going to side with my political benefactors, or am I going to side with this black constituency that helped put me in office? He made his choice. He sided with the teachers' unions. And that's what you're going to see because politicians want to get reelected. And when their interests part ways with those of the people they claim to represent, they're gonna put their own interests first, because that's what politicians do. And that is the problem for low-income blacks looking to politicians.
They want their constituents, their constituents to believe that the Democratic Party and the government has to do everything. It's the only way they can stay in power. They don't want charter school. They don't want choice. They don't want people of color to think for themselves, to work and make their own career choice. They want the government to hand out things. They want their constituents to believe that the government is everything for them.
The Democrats, I understand they have to do that because they're beholden to the teachers' unions. But why the Republicans don't say anything about it, that is what baffles me.
What we want are for blacks to be in a position to thrive no matter who's in office.
It still blows my mind that 80% of the black vote goes to Democrats. The Democrats have never done anything for the minority people. They talk a good talk, but what have they done for you? In Democrat-controlled cities and states, the education is the lowest and crime is the highest. Unemployment is the highest in these particular areas. And you would think after decades of putting these people in office, you would just try something that's a change and get away from all that bullshit that you hear. Oh, they're all racist. That's what you hear all the time. Just so you're aware, that's been going on for decades. They always say the Republicans are racist. They're racist people. They still haven't stopped. But let's continue.
Schools are not going to be able to get that funding, so public schools are going to close. So when the public schools close, those 7-year-olds, because come on now, they start kindergarten around, 7? They're going to be able to work because they ain't doing nothing else. They ain't going to school.
Oh, let's just say hypothetically, Donald Trump had this magic wand he pulls out of his ass, and he's able to create vouchers. And yeah, let's say people choose to go to the private school because it's a better education choice. Why does she think that there would be no schools for 7-year-olds? What does she think the students are going to do? Does she think they're just going to drop out of school and stop going to school, or go to the private school? Well, if you got a voucher, you can go to any school that you choose. So I don't understand her point. It doesn't make no sense. I know what she's trying to allude to, but no, it doesn't work here.
In Iraq, they changed the marriage law down to 9 years old.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And if you think I'm lying, go research that shit. They're not playing. This shit is fucking wild. Trump is trying to put us back down to like 1908, and 1853. He is literally trying to take us back there.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.